Hi, I'm Chris, creator of Flux Destiny. Welcome to the Flux Destiny channel here on YouTube. This is the next installment of a little series I've been doing called Books That Inspire Me. And as an artist and as a producer and as a writer, I turn to lots of material to help give me ideas, to inspire me, to make me really push my own creativity. I've got this huge treasure trove of art books that I've collected over my career, and I thought it would be fun to share these with you in this ongoing series that I do. And the next one is kind of a rare one. It's hard to find. It's not one that you would normally be able to find on Amazon because it's been out of print, and I had to buy it on eBay a few years ago, but it's very, very cool and very rare. And it's the Treasure Planet book. It's a Treasure Planet art book, A Voyage of Discovery is what it's called. The interesting about this book was that I have lots of art books from other Disney movies and other movies that are not Disney, and video games and things like that. And Treasure Planet, I like a lot of people, feel like it's a really underrated Disney movie, and it's such a shame what happened at the box office to that film. But I was like, there has to be an art book. And I would look on Amazon, and I was surprised. I was like, where is the Treasure Planet art book? Like, how can there not be one? And after some digging, I found out that there was one, and it's this one. But it was very limited print apparently, and you can't find it anymore. And I actually think it's kind of sad that they gave it the kind of paperback treatment. I was surprised when I found it because I thought it would be like one of the other Disney books, but it's actually a paperback book. And this cost me several $100s to buy this on eBay. I forgot what I ended up paying for it, but it was not cheap. But I'm such a fan of the series that I wanted to have this, and books are like my one gift to myself that I often do. So I love collecting art books and manga, and I just fill my bookshelves with it. And so this is one of those that I just had to collect and give myself as a birthday gift. So in this video, I'm going to flip through it and share some of it with you and show you some of the insights that it has in it and some of the behind the scenes art that you may not be able to see online unless you dig really hard, because this book is really hard to come by. I'm a huge fan of art books because they are great resources to help inspire you to push your own art and creativity forward, and to also remind you that your first idea doesn't have to be the one you go with. And the common story that you see in a lot of these art books is that developing a fictional universe is an iterative process where you have to get okay with throwing ideas away. And for me, as a creator and as a producer and writer, one of the major developments in my own career was being able to just say, crumple something up and throw it away. Walt Disney famously used a phrase called plussing, where they would make an idea funnier or bigger or greater. And that always stuck with me. And in my own development of my own universe and other stories I've worked on, I'm always like, when the first idea comes out of my head, I'm like, that's great, but how can I plus it? How can I make it better? And I encourage you to look at art books that way, is that they are a great way to teach you that you may see universes that you like and think, oh, that idea must have just come out of their head. No, oftentimes that's not the case. The truth is that developing a really cool narrative or universe takes time and iteration. So come along with me as we take a little trip to outer space and explore the development of Treasure Planet, one of Walt Disney's most underrated animated motion pictures, covered in Treasure Planet, A Voyage to Discovery. Now, Treasure Planet came at a really interesting time in Disney history. It was toward the end of, in a period that was kind of like after the Disney Renaissance, when those films like Beauty and the Beast, The Little Mermaid, movies like that were really like when Disney had reached this peak
that was called the Disney Renaissance. After that, there was a very difficult period of time that the studio went through as they were trying to find themselves, and they were finding competition from Pixar and other 3D animated movies that were, the new shiny object. And what's really interesting, having lived through that time and watching that happen, was that they were also going through this kind of cash grab situation. So they were starting to do all these direct to DVD videos and all these things that were just like lowering the quality of their shows themselves. So let's get right to it. So this book is out of print, as I was mentioning earlier, and is very difficult to find. And I bought it a few years ago. And as I was flipping through, I forgot that I still had this from when I bought it on eBay. And it was $185. And I forgot what it was listed at, but I made a counter offer and got this. And it's in excellent shape. Some of the ones that I've seen nowadays are like, I can't believe how expensive they are. I saw one that was like $500 something, and it's crazy. But the book itself, and that shows you kind of the fandom that Treasure Planet has. People really love the concept and love the movie. It's genuinely loved by a huge crowd, including myself. What I love about this book is that they go over all the development that went behind the design of the characters and of the production design itself. But what was really awesome is that they also give like behind the scenes backstories behind some of the characters, and that I didn't know about until I read this book. And so there's all sorts of like cool backstory to the characters that the filmmakers share within this book as well. So here's the contents page. Now, since this book is difficult to find, I will flip through it entirely so that if you don't have, if it's difficult for you to get your hands on this book, you'll be able to at least to see what the insides are. So it has several chapters. It has part 1, creating a world, which goes into all the development. Part 2, which is the chapter about all the different, it's called Inhabitants, about all the different characters. Part 3 is acting and animation. And those are the 3 parts of the book. So we've got these just beautiful illustrations in here. This is the just kind of like the synopsis of the story. Here's a development drawing of Treasure Planet itself. And what's interesting is that the reason why Treasure Planet, the planet itself, has dual rings, if you haven't figured this out yet, or you hadn't noticed, I didn't notice this till later, was that it was supposed to represent X marks the spot. So the two rings intersect and create an X. So creating a world, let's look at part 1. Now look remember what I said earlier, how much development really forms an idea, and how much you have to just iterate and iterate until you get the thing that you want. Look how different this is than the final story. This is an early character design that was done during this process. You can see some other really early work here as well. So in this particular page talks about how this Treasure Planet was the idea of director Ron Clements, who first imagined the story of Treasure Island in outer space, which I think is a really cool idea. I love when people take ideas like that and try to do something unique with it. So the Ethereum, which is the kind of ocean of space that everything flies through, which I thought was a cool idea. This is some concept art of the development of the Ethereum, which I think is really cool, that that ships are able to fly through it and you're able to go outside and breathe. It's not like the vacuum of space. Here's a cool one here with, there's no the caption doesn't say this, but what's interesting in this nebula, where you can see the skull here, it'd be interesting if that was where they meant where Treasure Planet was. I'm going to take my time with this video because this is just a book that's meant to enjoy. And, you know, since it's so difficult to find, I thought it'd be cool if you can just kind of like, if you want, you can pause and zoom in and see see some of this, because it's such a difficult book to find. I thought we could just kind of chill and enjoy this book together. Wasn't this such a cool shot in the film, the spaceport? I thought this was so cool. I mean, by today's standards, the CG isn't as you know, as good as some of the stuff that you see nowadays, but it's still, although that's arguable, some people would argue that CG's actually gone backwards. It was really a beautiful shot. Like, I just thought it was such a creative shot to go from this to the spaceport in the movie. So cool. Now, I've been waiting to get to this. Well, I'm going to talk about the 70-30 concept in a second, but I actually wish they would have said that earlier because it would make more sense. But the 70-30 principle in this movie was a design concept that they used. It was a principle they used. It was the law of 70-30. And it's like, it says the catchphrase referred to the ratio between the old 70% familiar and the new 30% invented technology elements in the film. While the ships look like magnificent galleons of the golden age of sailing, they are equipped with solar sails that generate power to huge thrusters. See, that's what I love about this particular universe, is how they applied this concept. And, you know, for your own universe, you can have similar concepts that help art direct and creative direct your universe. I love this. In Flux Destiny, for example, the universe takes place in an alternate 1990s Earth. So we're very careful about the way the technology has to be similar, but because of the magic of karmistry in Flux Destiny, it's just a little different than the technology we would have seen in the 80s and 90s here. And so, you know, this is great for when you're developing your own universe. You know, having your own rules that help govern and tie everything together. And you'll see the concept of 70-30 flowing through this whole book, which I just love that. It's funny because when you look through Disney art books and you see some of the stuff, especially at the very beginning, is very rough. And when I'm talking to other creators who are developing their worlds, or even people who are just starting out, like, I really encourage them to, it's okay for it to look ugly, like in your head, like not be perfect. The only way it's going to form is if you let it form. You have to let it kind of congeal and come out of the primordial soup. And, you know, when it comes out of that primordial soup, it's not going to be necessarily pretty at first, but with iteration, it evolves into your vision. And I can certainly speak from my own experience developing stories and worlds that's happened with me. At first, I didn't know that, and it was really frustrating, right? When I was a young designer and creator. But over time, I've learned to be patient with it, and anyway, it's just amazing. I just think if you can get that lesson, it helps you become so much better as a creator. Now, this is cool. If you know much about Disney production in the 90s and the 2000s, they had developed their own technology called deep canvas, and it allowed, one of the most famous examples of that was in Tarzan, where when he's swinging the vines and everything looks like a painting, but it's CG at the same time. Disney developed that technology themselves, and in this particular section they talk about how they could paint it and it could also change the lighting on the fly, which was very cool, right? If they made a mistake or if they wanted to change the mood, they could easily change the lighting thanks to this technology, which I think is really cool. I'll also say that, you know, I'm a huge fan of 2D animation. I grew up on it. I love it. I do love CG, but my favorite is when the two are combined. I absolutely love when both styles are tied together. You know, when I was a kid, usually CG was saved for like the real important scene, right? And it was, when it showed up, you knew it. I believe the first time Disney had ever used it was in The Great Mouse Detective, in the climax of the movie in Big Ben, where you have all the gears and things. And I think at the time, I could be wrong, but if I remember, I think they basically either, you know, they put them in, they animated it on the computer, but I think they may have traced over it and hand draw them or use some sort of like Xerox process or something. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was just cool. It means that you were in a really special moment. Or in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, like the at the end during the climax, and if you notice, they're usually same for the climax of the movies. In the climax of that film, Quasimodo jumps from Notre Dame down into the crowd, and there's just this amazing to grab Esmeralda, and there's just this amazing camera shot thanks to CG that's integrated with 2D in such a way that's just so awesome. And to this day, I can still watch it, even though it's not as, you know, refined. I don't know what word I'm trying to pick here, but it's not as like slick as like a modern Pixar movie. There was something about it that was just exciting as someone who is an aspiring animator and filmmaker. This one is this is cool. This is they were talking about for Captain Flint's ship, sorry, and how they wanted it to look like a large insect, and that's why it kind of has these appendages on it. This section talks about the Legacy, which is the ship that they fly, that Jim Hawkins and the crew take. And this is just they talk about the development of the ship. I loved the solar sails. I thought that was such a cool concept. And again, this is the 70-30, right? The ship primarily looks like a classic ship, but it's got technology weaved into it. It's really beautiful. I love all the work that goes into developing it before. Like the thoughts, like look, here we even have in this design of it, I'll bring it closer so hopefully you can see it. You can even see they had even figured the floor plan for it, which was really awesome. I guess I could have zoomed in earlier. I'll do that going forward. I'll zoom in on the cool stuff. Look at all this thought. And you know, what's interesting is there's a lot of thought that's put into the design of the ship and all elements of the production. And a lot of it you don't know, right? Like you don't know about because it doesn't make like an obvious, like no one says, you know, there's no dialogue or anything that tells you that this was specifically designed. It's just cool stuff that is developed to give the world authenticity. And I'm going to butcher this line. It's a line I quote a lot, but I heard it somewhere. And what makes someone an author, and again, I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember exactly how this line goes, but what makes someone an author is and what gives them the authority over their world, and it gives their world authenticity, is their mastering of the details and everything that went into the development of their world. And so those words are linked, right? You're an author, you have the authority over your world to speak of it, and through that, it gives your world authenticity when you know the littlest details and you know all this behind the scenes stuff that was developed for your world, even if it doesn't make an overt appearance in your film. See, this is kind of cool. They're talking about this particular scene where Jim peers through the hollow blinds, and what was cool was that, you know, if I remember, I think in the movie you didn't know that it was not like I guess if you would have remembered the establishing shot, you would have seen there wasn't a field outside, but it looked like a real a field of flowers outside. But here they talk about the development of the hollow blinds. I'll just read this part to you. During a visual development meeting for Treasure Planet, Associate Art Director Ian Gooding presented a painting of the interior of the Benbow Inn with a bright sunny day making itself apparent through the window. When I did the painting, Gooding relates, I had not yet been informed by the directors that Jim's homeworld was permanently gloomy, so the picture was deemed inappropriate and was poorly received. That is until Tina Price, the assistant artistic coordinator, suggested that even though it was overcast outside, perhaps each building had these amazing windows that could make the outdoors appear to be whatever beautiful scene the owner had loaded into the Windows hard drive. Since then, we've been referring to them as Venusian blinds, like Venus, right? Instead of Venetian blinds. And that's such a cool, they don't say that in the film, right? But that's the canon term for it, you know, in this world, which is such a cool, it's so cool. It's just such a cool concept. Again, we talked about X marking the spot, which is just this brilliant, subtle use of the rings to create an X. I don't believe they said that in the movie. I think that I read that later and I looked back and go, oh, right. Like I didn't get it right away, and I don't think they said it in the film, but I'm pretty sure they did. But the fact that it formed X marks the spot was such a cool concept. So here they talk about, this section's cool because they start talking about Treasure Planet itself, how it wasn't really a planet, but a planet-sized device. And later in this section, when they start getting into the center of the planet where the treasure actually is, it's really cool because there's all this lore I didn't know about because it's not talked about in the film. And I had questions about it when I was watching. I'm like, what does this mean? Or what does that mean? And they actually explain it in this book, and I'll get to it in a minute. So the centroid, so this is the part I was talking about. When we, the centroid is like the core of the planet and where the treasure is. And this is the part that there were some answers in the lore about this section, and we're about to get to in a few seconds, that provided some lore that I didn't know about. Look how cool. This is the development of the portal. So cool. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You know, I can't stop. Like, whenever I look through an art book like this, I cannot express how the feelings I get looking through any art book like this, because I deeply, deeply respect the amount of love and care and attention that creators put into their universes. And it's something I try to do myself, and I take a lot of pride in, because you're crafting something. It's like, you know, if you've seen a grandfather clock that's been like carved really carefully, and like the mechanism has been built, with all of these tiny gears and sprockets and springs. It's just the care, the handcrafting. I'm kind of at a loss of words now, because it's a feeling I can't describe, but I just love it, and it just inspires me. Okay, now here's the part I was talking about. So the centroid is the core of the planet, and this is actually super cool because it answered a bunch of questions. If you recall from the movie, there are all these like there's all these like like these projections that are shooting into the center of the sphere as it spins. And I was like, is that just supposed to be like visually cool, or was there like a reason that the planet operates this way? And I was like, why do those things exist? Well, they actually explain it in this little paragraph. It says, Flint's treasure sits over a gigantic sphere in the center of the chamber that is the centroid of the mechanism, the core generator at the heart of Treasure Planet. The centroid generates gravity that keeps the artificially constructed planet in balance, as well as acting as a giant computer. Mammoth cylindrical projections surround the core, which are conduits to transfer energy and information from the core to the planet's surface and back. Captain Flint planted explosives on one of these gigantic prongs, which would bring down the destruction of the planet if anyone were ever to re-enter the core. So all that makes sense now. Now I understand why these things existed and what they were doing. And that's never explained in the movie, but that was the intent of the filmmakers, which is super cool. That's just so cool to hear. Now, when I rewatch this movie, I have a different feeling about it, because I know that it's not just for the sake of looking cool. Because, sometimes things are just done because they look cool, just for the aesthetics. But if there's a meaning behind it, it's even better. So now we go into the characters. I love these two. I love Captain Amelia. She's so awesome. Now look, I'm going back. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but we talk a lot about the development of worlds and characters and why you have to iterate and iterate. Now, I think it's pretty much indisputable that Jim Hawking's design is really amazing. He's such an awesomely designed character. But when we look through the development of what it took to get there, he was kind of rough at first, right? Like, you can look at the early stuff, and eventually led them to come up with his final design, which everyone, knows and loves, and really suits his character well. And in this book, they talk a lot. And if you notice in the movie, here, for example, this is the scene where he knows his father's leaving. Up until this point, there's no shade over his eyes. His face is pretty clear. After that, his eyes are always under the shade of like a heavy brow. So his face is constantly in a shadow. And you'll notice through the film that lifts as his circumstances change. And it's a cool little, like, subtle design decision that adds so much depth to the character, that does it without them having to say anything. They're showing it through his design. There's some cool stuff about his solar surfer, which I thought that was such an awesome scene in the movie. I love this. This was such an awesome moment in the movie where he reignited the engine so it would fly again. That was so awesome. So Here, this is how they use the Solar Surfer to give you insight into his character. So they say in the book, it says, the hardware of the Solar Surfer itself is also an indicator of Jim's personality. It's a go-kart style knockoff created by an enterprising and clever teenager. I think our Jim is smart and talented and capable, Musker says, who's the director. But for various reasons, he's heading down a wrong path at the beginning of the story. Things like this show he's very bright with lots of potential, but he's troubled and in danger of throwing away his future if he doesn't, if something doesn't intervene. Excuse me. John Silver. John Silver is I love this character. I thought they did a great job with him. And look how much work they had to do to figure him out. This was not something that that was an easy find. I mean, they went through a lot of different designs to finally come up with his design. And I read in this book that his final design was inspired by a bear, and he's supposed to be like the shape of a bear. You can see that the proportions of his legs are really short compared to his torso. But look at all these different creatures and designs they went through. Even like some of the technology, when we talk about the 70-30 principle, Glenn Keane talks about his cyborg eye, and he talks about some of the inspiration that he saw from old-timey trains, like steam engines, and also oil wells in the Los Angeles area that he used to integrate some of that into the design. Like here you can see the influence of the locomotive. And what was cool was this was a blend. It's interesting that he's a cyborg because at the same time, the technology used to animate his character makes him a cyborg of sorts in a design sense, because he's partly 2D and partly 3D. And his appendages, his cyber appendages are all 3D animated. And this is really cool. I didn't know about this. What's amazing is that when they were trying to figure out if they could do this, to blend the two with the character, they took some of Frank Thomas's original animation drawings of Captain Hook from Peter Pan and reshot them. And they digitally erased the arm and the hook. And then they created this prototypical arm, and then they combined it to see if the fusion would work. And here they say, not only did the hook test succeed, but it convinced everyone that the hybrid nature of the limbs and eye would not be scuttled by even the most dangerous technical squall. So look, you can see here how they took the old animation from Captain Hook and replaced it with CG. They erased his arm and replaced it with a CG arm and continued the acting. That is just amazing. I just think that's so cool. And look at the level of detail. You would never know this detail in Silver's arm and how all the pieces work. And this moment with the filleting blade and the shrimp dicer, all this, it only appears for a moment in the film, but look at the detail that went into it. It's incredible detail. It's incredible thought and detail that went into it. Look at that. That is just unbelievable. It's just amazing. Dr. Doppler, he's actually a pretty cute character. As I was reading this, I found out that he was originally intended to be a human character, and they changed it and came up with this kind of dog race. alien dog race. And what's interesting is, of course, him and Amelia, Captain Amelia, form a relationship. So it's kind of like this dog and cat thing that was that was kind of fun. Look at the iterations they went through. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but look how many different things they tried before they settled into what he looked like. And they even tried some really crazy things, right? Before they finally settled, and you can see the idea start to take shape to the character you know today. I love this page because I'm going to actually do this again for you so you can see. You can see the evolution of his character. Captain Amelia. I love her so much. She's such a great character. And they did such a great job of giving her eyes and she's so cat-like in a way that's like, it's not, I don't know how to explain it. It's just such instead of them, like one thing they talked about in here is they didn't want the characters like Dr. Doppler or Captain Amelia to be just like a human with a dog head, or a cat head on it. Instead, something that was more, developed and more humanoid. And I just think they did such a great job with this. Okay. I don't know what you guys think. Ben was my least favorite character in the movie, and I think it was because just the way I think he could have really been a great character. This is my one complaint about this movie is Ben. And I think it was because he was supposed to be the, crazy, like sidekick. Disney always had to have that silly character, which, I get it's for kids and they want to have something silly. But he's so over the top and so just annoying and not funny and his design is cute. Like, I think he's a great design, but I think the way the character was executed, because even the characters don't like him in the movie, but not even in a funny way. Like, I feel like the way that they react to Ben is the same way I react watching the movie. And it's not funny. It's just like he kind of destroys the illusion, I feel like, in this movie. But I liked his design. Morph. So this is something, okay, I may be stupid for this, but it didn't strike me until I read this, was that Morph was essentially supposed to be Silver's parrot. And I know this is dumb that this did not strike me when I first saw it, that he was supposed to be a replacement, not like a space parrot, and I didn't know that right away. I guess it's just because my brain saw him so literally as this like blob alien that I didn't see the symbolism of him being like a parrot, like a, how pirates have like a stereotypical pirate has a parrot on its shoulder. So I just thought that was, first I felt dumb, and then I thought, okay, but that's cool. So, but it's okay. I'm a human being. Sarah Hawkins. Look at all the iterations they went through for her design. I loved this scene, by the way. This was great. Captain Flint. So cool. This is pretty dark too for Disney stuff at the time. The Billy Bones. The cyborg. Which is funny because he warns him to beware of the cyborg, and one little like plot hole is like Jim just kind of like completely throws out a side. I don't know if it's a plot hole, but maybe it just shows his immaturity and his youth, that he just like he doesn't heed the warning of the cyborg and ends up trusting Silver. Mr. Arrow. Poor Mr. Arrow didn't deserve that, his fate. Scroop. brain Mary. Like some of the names I didn't know. I think some of the names I think they might say in the film, but I didn't remember hearing all their names. So here we go through all their names. But they had a whole hierarchy of how the aliens worked. And this is only what they're presenting. We can only imagine the hundreds, possibly thousands of drawings that went into developing this. And finally, the last part is more about the acting in the film, and kind of the way the characters interact. And so here they even talk about what I was just saying. In their first meeting, Jim Hawkins suspects that alien John Silver of being the cyborg Billy Bones warned him about, but he has no proof. That's what I was saying earlier. So he's just like, after a rocky start aboard the galleon RLS Legacy, Jim finds a much-needed friend and father figure in the ship's cook. The relationship between John Silver and Jim Hawkins provided the story with an internal compass that helped it stay on course. Which I love their relationship. They have a they really handle their relationship really well. And the way it's portrayed, it's done really naturally. Like it's just really, really well done. Really, really, really well done. That's really, like, I think my favorite part of the film is how they manage their relationship. I loved this line in here because they talk about the animator who worked on Silver said, "I kept picturing the true heart of Silver as a pilot light. It's very small, but it's there inside of him. When Jim comes into his life, the light somehow is somehow ignited, and every interaction with Jim makes it grow a little brighter. It was important to me that in moments where Silver comforts Jim, like after Arrow's death, you don't second guess whether Silver is manipulating him or genuinely feeling concern about Jim. My sense was that it was important that this be genuine because this was going to have a genuine change that happened later." So I just really love that. And somewhere in here they talked about, I don't remember exactly where it was, where the voice actor who did Silver. Okay, here it is. Silver is the hero. The voice actor actually refrains from calling Silver a villain. Silver is the hero of the piece in a curious way. Nobody knows that Silver is a villain until well into the story, so he has to be a nice guy who's charming and funny and friendly, although he's got a lot of blarney. It's a classic reversal in the story when Jim is betrayed and then feels that Silver's sincerity was really self-serving. Following that scene, you see Silver as Jim now sees him, as pretending to be the nice guy. It's disguised charm. And he goes on to say, how did Murray approach playing this enigmatic miscreant? In acting, you always go for the essence of the character. If the character is truly evil, you play the bad guy. But Silver is essentially a good guy. What you do when you play a villain who has to come across as a good guy is you play the good guy. The villain takes care of himself. Which I thought just was awesome. That's so great. Oh, I love this. I love this moment in the movie. And there's so much just with this drawing. That would be such a cool drawing to have. Oh, something I was going to say. If you notice in some of these drawings where it's just the cleanup art, you'll notice that you can see the shadow that is painted, that is outlined on Jim's eye mask here, so you can kind of see the shadow I was talking about earlier. I love this scene about the light coming off of Jim when he's giving him that after he feels terrible about what happened to Mr. Arrow. So this is great because twice Silver will betray Jim before the conclusion of the story. Once when he leads the Legacy's crew in mutiny against her captain, and again in the encounter at the tower when he demands the map that Jim has retrieved at the peril of his own life. Jim accepts that Silver is not the man he thought he was and has abandoned him as his real father. This is paralleled by Silver's realization that he is not the man he's made himself out to be in the eyes of the boy. Silver discovers he genuinely cares for, respects, and loves the youth. The break of faith is an equally crushing blow for both of them. And actually earlier there was something I wanted to say about that and I lost it. There's something I wanted to mention earlier about that. About Jim's backstory. Because they actually talk in here, it may be here later, where they talk about how, was this it? This might be it. In here somewhere they talked about the actual backstory of how it was developed for Jim. And it was actually something I didn't know. I didn't know the details of until I read this book. It's in here somewhere. These are great drawings. I love this moment too. This moment in the film was one of my favorite moments. Absolutely love this. Really, if you think about it, stories don't have to be complex. It's really about these just amazing moments between characters that really make a story worth it. It doesn't have to be overtly complex. It can be very, very simple. This was I love this ending. It was like such a great ending. This is a great moment in the movie. It actually makes me smile because it was really great. And look, when we get to the end and you see that Jim has gone through the academy and he no longer has the shade over his eyes. That's it.
That was cool, right? It's so awesome to see that these amazing universes really go through an iterative process before they become the final thing that you see on TV. And if you're an aspiring creator or writer or author, artist, whatever it may be, I hope it gives you encouragement that whatever ideas you're working on, you have to let them develop. And you have to be okay with them being in draft form and require iteration. One of my favorite lines is from Ed Catmull's book, Creativity, Inc. And he talked about Pixar's commitment to nurturing ugly babies and being okay with your ugly baby, that when you created it first, it's gonna need nurturing, right? And it's gonna be ugly at first. And that's always stuck in my head, and I talk about the ugly babies a lot because I think that was such an encouraging, realistic view about what being a creator is, that very rarely does an idea come out fully formed. You need to nurture it and spend time with it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. More of these to come. I hope you'll join us on our Flux Destiny Fandom Discord server. Go to fluxfandom.com and it'll take you right there. You'll get to meet all sorts of cool people who are part of our community. And if you haven't already, go check out fluxfantasy.com and check out our RPG that is now in beta, public beta, and you can be part of that awesome project that we've been working on for some time. Anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the fandom.